Cat Days by Griffin Rose on AO3. Episode 21, Chapter 3, Izuku, the Social Butterfly. It sounds like everyone fought plus ultra, Tenya said. His voice still lacked his normal level of enthusiasm, but it was leagues better than his brokenness he had started the call with. They really did, Izuku said. They didn't talk for much longer before Tenya had to go, and then Izuku rushed to tell Hisashi and Shouta what happened. They were just as upset as Izuku, and without hesitation decided to go with him to visit the following day. Izuku didn't sleep well. Too many worries for too many classmates circled in his head. On the drive to Hoshi, he spent almost the entire time texting someone or other. Be it Kirishima about Bakugo, Todoroki, Tenya, or a dozen other classmates who were just as worried. He spent the day in the waiting room, but not always with Tenya. Tenya went back and forth between the waiting room and his brother's room, depending on whether or not Tensei was awake or with nurses or whatnot. He relayed messages between Dad, Sashi, and Tenya, growing more and more aggravated as the three friends started joking around more. Izuku didn't know how Dad and Sashi did it. They were upset, sure, but they seemed like they were already moving on and making their peace with this new reality. Tenya was different, not making any sort of peace. When he came back from Tensei's later in the day, he revealed that Tensei couldn't feel his leg at all. They didn't need to wait for the test to come back. They already knew. And Tenya was not handling it well. Izuku hugged him, tried to help Tenya see the bright side of this, but Tenya didn't want to hear it. He shrugged Izuku off and went for a walk, curling, yelling Izuku he wanted to be alone. Don't take it to heart, Hisashi said, pulling Izuku into his lap and hugging him. He's just lashing out because he doesn't know what else to do with that anger. I know he's hurting, but it's not like Tensei died, Izuku said, clutching Hisashi's hand. Things will be different, but he'll still have his big brother. When someone Izuku had cared about was hurt, Izuku had never seen her again. Things had changed, and he'd practically had an entire new life. None of the people were the same, none of the places. He was barely the same. He understood Tenya's anger. He really did. There had been plenty of times he wanted nothing more than to punch Sashi in the face for what he had done, plenty of times with the grief, when it was so painful he couldn't even get out of bed. He wasn't trying to make Tenya's pain less than what it was, or claim that he had it worse somehow. Tenya had a right to be upset about all of this, and maybe he just needed time to process. Maybe Izuku constantly hovering was making things worse for him. The last thought was only reinforced when Tenya came back from his walk and brushed off Izuku's attempts at conversation. He, Shouta, and Sashi didn't stay long after that. Tenya just needed time. That was all. The next day, he was about to head back to the hospital when Todoroki texted him and asked if they could hang out. Izuku checked in with Tenya, received more cryptic messages that, of course he could hang out with Todoroki, smiley face. He didn't understand, and then met up with Todoroki at the park between their houses. It was the middle of the day, and most kids were still in school. It was only UA that had off right now, so that meant that pretty much had the park to themselves. Izuku waited on the swings, rocking back and forth on his toes. Todoroki finally showed up, sliding into the swing next to him. He wasn't injured, at least. Izuku had been worried about the other night, but it didn't look like Endeavor had taken that disappointment out on Todoroki. That was a relief. I went to visit my mother yesterday, Todoroki said. He stared at the wood chips beneath them, kicking a few with the tip of his shoes. It's the first time I've seen her since it happened. That's good, Izuku said. I'm proud for you of going. Todoroki hummed. I'm glad I went. I wanted her to know that I never blamed her for what happened. The only reason I never went before was because I didn't want to upset her. Izuku pushed himself a little closer and wrapped his hand around Todoroki's. As much as Todoroki claimed it was for his mother's benefit, there had probably been some fear in there as well. She rejected him once, after all. He probably hadn't wanted to know if she'll do it again. How is your mom? His face softened, lips pushing into his bare smile. Good. She's really good. The first thing she did when I walked in was hug me and apologize. I hadn't realized how much I wanted to hear that, or how much I missed her. Izuku was happy Todoroki could get that kind of closure. I told her about my life, growing up, UA, you, everything you told me. I've been so confused about my using my left side, but she said the same thing you did. It's my power, not his. I'm the only one who could decide how to use it. She sounds very smart, Izuku quipped. Rolling his eyes, Todoroki swung sideways to bump against Izuku. I'm gonna start training with my left side again. Good, Izuku said. He might not personally be a huge fan of fire, but this was Todoroki's quirk. He didn't want to see his friend limit himself and get in trouble for it later. Besides, fire would probably be a regular issue he had to deal with as a hero. He needed to train himself past his fears. I'm really happy for you, Todoroki. I never would have gotten to this point without you, Todoroki said. Thank you. Nah, you would have gotten here eventually, Izuku stated. Maybe not before we graduated, but eventually. Todoroki swung into him again, and Izuku laughed. Will you just let me be grateful? You single-handedly made my life so much better. Heat rose in Izuku's cheeks. You're welcome, then? Gratitude accepted. But, I mean, you're the one who approached me, so don't just sell yourself out short. Todoroki hummed, rocking in a swing. I was so desperate for someone to understand what growing up as the son of a hero was like. Even though you didn't have the same life, you still understood what I meant. Izuku tightened his hands around the train of the swing. Well, my life wasn't exactly paradise before Dad adopted me. He hadn't had a father place ridiculous expectations on him and train him until he threw up, but he knew what it was like to sneak around the house in socks while everyone else was asleep. He knew what it was like to cater his hobbies and activities to avoid being noticed by someone. Can I ask what happened? Todoroki looked at him carefully. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, and I'm sorry if it's rude to ask. I'm not sure what the rules are for this kind of thing. Izuku smiled and shook his head. No, it's fine. It's been long enough that I don't mind talking about it too much. It just makes me a little sad. So you'll have to cheer me up when I'm done. Todoroki looked stricken at the thought. I don't want to make you sad, and I'm terrible at cheering people up. Izuku laughed. I'm mostly kidding. Don't worry. Mostly? Todoroki did not look comforted at the thought. Izuku continued talking anyways, pushing himself gently on the swings. He was mostly detached as he detailed his abusive father and what growing up with him was like. When he described the final night, he stopped swinging, feet dragging through the wood chips. Mom died a few days later in the hospital, Izuku said. I didn't even know she passed that night. I found out on the news, because there was still a search out for me. I'm sorry, that's awful, Todoroki said. Izuku shrugged. This sounds terrible, but I don't regret not seeing her those final days. She wouldn't have looked like herself, covered in third-degree burns and hooked up to all those machines. Since I didn't see her, she'd always happy and healthy in my memories. That makes sense, Todoroki said. It was why he hadn't visited his own mother for so many years. If she was going to respond negatively to his presence, he didn't want to know. He didn't have to live with that knowledge. Izuku tilted his head up to watch the clouds. I do regret missing her funeral, but I wasn't in a good headspace for a while. He snorted. I wasn't even human for a while. When I get really stressed, I tend to morph into a cat, and until I calm down, I can't change back. Wait, you were stuck as a cat while all this was happening? Todoroki asked. Izuku nodded. I was a cat for 3 months. 3 whole months? Todoroki repeated. Izuku nodded again. Dad found me and assumed I was a stray cat, so he took me in. That's how we met. Todoroki's forehead creased. So he catnapped you. Is that illegal? Izuku snorted. I obviously didn't stay a cat. He was pretty shocked when he used his quirk on me and I turned into a kid. Any sane person would be, Todoroki murmured. So, long story short, he took me to the police. I was put in foster care. We kept in touch for a while, and then he officially adopted me. Todoroki kept staring at him, eyes narrowed, and mouth falling open. So you lived with Sensei for 3 months as a cat, and he had no idea? He thought I was just super smart, like Principal Nezu. Izuku explained. I do use it for leverage when he thinks I'm being dumb. The look on Shota's face was always priceless whenever Izuku retorted. At least I didn't miss my cat was actually a human for 3 months. Though it had lost some of its effects now that Izuku had lived with him for so long, and had also plenty of dumb things for Shouta to respond with. The look didn't leave Todoroki's face as he progressed this information. Izuku sipped out his phone and took a picture, sending it to Tenya with the caption, I just told him my tragic backstory. Hopefully Tenya would find it funny, and it would cheer him up a little. It is literally so hard to write right now. Storm really hurt me badly. Specifically on my thumb. On my thumb, there's like a huge gash. Not a huge gash, but it's like a big scratch. I'm pretty sure he was having a nightmare. I don't know. We were cuddling, and then he started like twitching. Not twitching, but like, you know, the little leg twitch and then the little arm twitch. You know, typical little thingies. And then he started meowing a little, and I thought, oh shit, okay, he doesn't want to be cuddling anymore. So I uncuddled him, so I had my hands out so he could literally leave. And I'm like, he's not leaving. I looked down, I'm like, okay, fucker's sleeping. He's probably just having a sleep. Like a nightmare. He started like grumbling, and I'm like, is he okay? I started getting concerned. So I tried to wake him up because I'm concerned. And he wakes up, the first thing he does is attack my hand. And then immediately start licking my hand, like as if he didn't mean to attack me. Which I don't think he did. I'm so confused. Whatever, point taken is, I'm not mad at him. If anything, if he did mean to attack me, then that's my fault for misreading his signals and stuff like that. That's on me. That's my bad. But, it was just so weird, you know? But it's hard to write. Anyways, Tenya's going the dark side. RIP whatever I said. As much as I like to say, like, yeah, Tenya does have a support system and a solid one here. Just because he has a support system does not mean he's going to retort to said support system, right? We could be in our darkest moments and not turn to our support system, right? And I'm not saying that's okay. You need to go to your support system, right? But we're human. We make mistakes. Hopefully Izuku gets to stop Tenya before he does anything he regrets later down the road. Also, I love Todoroki finding out Izuku's tragic backstory. We love it. We love this bonding. Izuku started blushing. Izuku, are you informed that this is a genfic? Or is there actually gonna be something? Because we already had that whole ooh with with Shinso, and then we had that ooh with Todoroki. So is there gonna be a ship? What? Anyways, as always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.